Well, hello. I've not been live on Facebook for a long time. I can't remember actually the last time I went live on Facebook. I'm not showing my face because I'm actually here in my comfies, my scruffs. I didn't expect or didn't plan to go live today. I find myself at home and I had planned, or we had planned, to be in Norfolk this week. I'm on annual leave from work. And we had planned to be in Norfolk this week, but plans have gone adrift, what with just one thing and another. So we're not actually going to be in Norfolk this week. Well, the week's nearly over. So the reason I am just hopping on live is because I've just been talking to a new customer and actually a new crafter. So I've known this person for a lot of years. Hi Shaz. I've known this person for a lot of years, and I will just say hello, Diane. And Diane's new. She's not watching at the minute because she's busy, but I will tag her into this video once it's finished. So Diane is new to crafting, completely new to crafting. She is a creative person, but she's new to paper crafting. And I didn't know that she'd started this new hobby until last week, and we had a chat. I introduced her, of course, to Stampin' Up, and this morning I had a lovely chat with her as she was placing her very first order for Stampin' Up. So I'm just going to bring in the catalogue and pages 102 to 103, which just so happens to be my favourite suite, masterfully made in the annual catalogue. And Diane started by asking me a question from page 11 actually of the catalogue. She'd seen this card and really loved it. I was asking her about what her style was and what she enjoyed making. So she pointed me to this card and we had a little chat about this card, and then we went and explored the suite, and it dawned on me, really evident, that when somebody is completely new to crafting and paper crafting, you only know what you only know. And this was also evident to me a couple of weeks ago at the Lincoln Craftorama Craft Fair, as I was doing some make and takes, and I always love to share hints and tips, dead simple stuff. Never ignore the simple stuff, never get bogged down in the really tricky detailed stuff and the fancy techniques, etc. So I was teaching a make and take, and I had a lovely comment from one of the ladies who said, "Thank you so much. I would have happily paid you twice as much because of all the hints and tips that you gave me. Just the really simple stuff that I can take away and now just do." And that floored me. That comment was so lovely, but it kind of floored me after a long time of demonstrating, a lot of years of demonstrating, running classes. It's so lovely to hear that you're still inspiring and helping more than anything newbies. So this demonstration, I am actually going to case this card for Diane because she has ordered the suite, and I'm so delighted that she's ordered the suite. So I'm going to actually case this card, and I'm going to mention a couple of things that Diane asked me. Well, how do I do this? How do I do that? How is this? How does this happen? So I will highlight those as we go. So I'm standing at the moment. I'm going to take a seat and just make sure I've got everything to hand, which I think I have. I've got the gorgeously made dies, I've got the gorgeously made stamp set. However, that card only has one stamp. I've got my trimmer, which I need. So let's just make sure we've got that page open again, and we can make sure we faithfully case that card. So I'll just have that to one side. Now we'll just take a seat. So we'll start off with the card blank, and I'm using my second favourite phone stand for filming today. So if I do knock it, it is placed right on my desk rather than clamped to the shelf up above me, so there's every opportunity for me to knock it, so I'll apologise in advance if I do that. So I'm going to start with a full sheet of A4, and this is Berry Burst, and that's one of the colours I'm going back to, because remember this is aimed at beginners or newbies to Stampin' Up. Berry Burst is one of our colours which is contained in the designer series paper for this suite. So I'm going to take a full sheet of A4 and I'm going to cut it down for a card blank. So I'm going to go at 14.8 centimetres, or just shy of 15 centimetres. I do that if I'm doing multiples. If I'm just doing a one-off, you can go 15 centimetres, because this piece will just, the other half will be not quite a half. So just shy of 15 will give me my card base. I need to score that then in half, turn that to landscape, and I need to score that at 10.5. So I'm going to just push my scoring blade out of the way, my cutting blade out of the way, and I'm going to use my light grey scoring tool, and I'm going to score that card. So now I've got my piece of card and I can fold that in half. So that's my card blank. The other piece of card I'm going to use for die cutting, so that's just popped to one side. Now if I bring this example back in, I can see that I need a piece of designer series paper for that main layer, and I'm going to die cut along the edge, and I'm going to guess the size of this. I'm just going to guess it. So to guess, because the sample card in the catalogue will be American sized, first of all I'm going to get the piece of designer series paper that that card is made using, and it's actually double-sided, so it does use this side for the main piece, and then this side is actually used on a tag on the top of the card as well on the other side. So I'm going to guess the size. Now to do that I'm going to just grab a ruler, and I can see the piece is not quite the full width of the card, so I'm guessing it's going to be 10, and it's going to be about, I'm just looking, I reckon it's going to be a 10 by 10 square, 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre square. Might just be a little bit less. I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to go 10 centimetres by 9 centimetres, but I need it to be 10 in the portrait way. So I think that this is a directional piece of patterned paper, and I'm going to say this is the top and bottom, and these are the sides, with these bright green bits sort of running horizontally. So I'm going to measure a piece 10 centimetres wide, and I'm going to trim that on my trimmer. I'm now going to shorten this to, I'm going to go for 9 centimetres, and then I will hold that up onto my card front and just see. I think that that's going to give me enough, because there are some die cuts that are positioned behind the actual, this main piece of the card. So that's a piece trimmed. I'm going to use this for the die cuts. I now need to do a little bit of this, the opposite side of the designer series paper, this lemon lime twist side. Let me show you the original card for this tag behind the sentiment tag. So I can see it's longer, so I'm going to make that let's say 10.5. Again, I think it's directional. I think we can see, yeah, actually we can see, I can just see, it might not come out on camera, the pattern behind, and it's actually this way round. So I'm going to trim that down, and I'm going to trim it to 4 centimetres this way, and then I'm going to just trim it down. Oh, it's already 10. Yeah, it's already 10 because I've trimmed this 10. Could do with that being a bit longer. So I'm going to go back to this piece, and rather than waste it, I'm actually going to just turn the pattern, and I'm going to trim a piece, 11 centimetres. So this is when we just don't know what we don't know. and I'm going to trim that 4 centimetres. Let's go back. So I've got my piece that will be turned into a tag. I've already, just think, I already did stamp, so I already cut my top tag 4 centimetres, and I think I made that, let me just measure that. I made that 8 centimetres, so I made it a little bit shorter, and I've already stamped that ahead of time. I used all the colours in the actual suite, and I used just the hello stamp, and I stamped it ahead of time because in between each stamp I cleaned off my stamp, just to save a little bit of time. And I want to share one of the questions that Diane asked me when we were chatting about this particular card example in the catalogue was, Izzy, how do you make that pointy end bit? And it's such a simple technique that I forget to tell people how to do it. Of course, we focus on dies, and we've got many die sets in the catalogue. We've also got a punch in the catalogue that can make this pointy end, but you've got a pair of snips, so I'm going to show you on this lemon lime twist piece how to do that pointy end. And it may be that we end up shortening this even further, but they're the pieces that we need to make our card. I do need to go ahead and do some die cutting. The pieces that I need to die cut are this piece, and I need to do 2 fancy pieces using this berry burst. So I'm going to bring in, and although Diane is new to paper crafting, she has invested in a die cutting machine already and is already having fun with her die cutting machine, and she's enjoying embossing folders and die cutting. So I'm just going to bring my big die cutting machine. I'm going to use berry burst. I'm going to grab the dies, and I'm going to use this big fancy leaf. I'm standing back up now. Oh, hello Maxine. Oh, Maxine's out shooting today. So I've got a couple of people watching. I'm not sure who's watching, but I can see Maxine is because she's commented, so that's lovely. And yes, of course, Maxine's watching on catch up because she's out with the shoot today. She lives in Scotland, and I'm hoping she's not going to get blown away because there's a big storm up in Scotland. So yes, that's the beauty of Facebook Lives, and I will upload this to YouTube as well, that you can of course watch and catch up. So I've just run that through the machine, and I'm going to just pop that out. Now I do need 2 of these, so you'll have to bear with me while I pop this out. Here we go, so that's 1. Just pop that down, and so that's in the die. I'm going to pop it out, and I will use actually just pokey tool. I've got the brush and my take your pick tool, but I want to give you a tip with this die in particular. I was using this die yesterday to do some Christmas decorations, and I found that if we use all of the little holes that are there to help you pop out the cardstock, and then if you turn it over, and I started from the top and I ran my pokey tool down the stems and just started to lift it out, because there aren't many of those little bits of spare, and then just very carefully lift it. Use the stems. I just found that using the stems to lift with the pokey tool, it's a particularly grabby die this, but you just need to take your time and be careful. There aren't too many bits that need to actually pop out, they're just those little bits in between. So it's not one of those dies where every single petal or something needs to be popped out. So in fact I'm going to leave that one in, and I'll show you why in a minute. So let's go back on, push that through my well used platform, and we'll just position that back on, and we'll run that die through again. There we are. I'm restricted for space, so I'm just trying to be careful not to knock the camera stand. And we'll just pop that one out again. And again, we're just going to go with our pokey tool, our piercing tool, pop through all of those little holes. And those holes are designed as cardstock release holes. And they're to help the card be released from the die. These other gaps are just the bits we don't need. But you can see if we just go through, and again, if I start from the top and run my pokey tool or my piercer down that stem in the middle, it starts to lift. We can just run that all the way around. Just be careful. It's quite a delicate die, so we do just need to be careful, and it'll just fall out. There you go. Pop my die in my magnetic dish rather, and I'll just pop some of those out, these extra pieces that we don't need. Let's just pop those and get rid of them. And I will share, as always, let me just drop those on there. There we go, they're popping out now. As always, I will share my non-Stampin' Up tool, my 99p from Home Bargains lint roller for picking up all those little extra annoying bits from your desk. So there you are, that's another beginner tip, or anybody tip, not just a beginner tip. So we've done those two die cutting pieces. I'm now going to do the last die cut piece, which is for the patterned paper, and it's the piece that cuts, it makes it look like a piece of torn out note paper from a notepad. Oh, Shaz, you're out feeding the sheep, but you're still watching. Gosh, you never miss a trick, do you? You never miss a crafting video. I'm just going to move my die cutting machine. I've got my chamois in the way. I'm just going to move my die cutting machine up a little bit so you can actually see how I'm positioning this on the plate. So I'm actually going to put my DSP slightly on a wonk, so slightly on an angle rather than square. And I'm going to put this die nice and straight along the edge, and I'm going to put my top plate on, and I'm just watching whether it moves or not. Now it didn't move, so I'm actually nipping the plates and the sandwich together firmly so that that's not going to move as I start to feed it through the machine. What you can't see on camera, if I move it up, you might just see this finger here. I'm still nipping that sandwich together as I'm using my right hand to turn the handle. Now I'm just going to have to move the whole lot back because I'm limited for space. And as I start to roll it through, keeping that thumb on my plate, I'm just letting go with my fingers, but I'm keeping that pressure on that top plate so that that die doesn't move. It's not going to move now. It's started to go through the rollers, so I know I can move this hand to grab the top. So again, for you experienced crafters who are watching, this will be a little bit like back to basics, but it's easy to forget that people are just starting out. So hopefully that was useful for Diane. I've got some of those plates that really grab your dies. Some plates just don't do it, and look, this one's really grabbed my die, it just won't let go. But if you turn it over and give it a press, can you see how that's popped up now, and I can lift off the die? And I think it's just purely the material. You can see this plate is so well used, massively well used. I use my plates in classes, and yet you can see it's still quite flat. A lot of plates do banana and bend and warp, and every so often you get a set of plates that just don't do that. This is my top plate. It's only been used as a top plate. It still marks because the die, and occasionally it's been used as a bottom by accident in class, but the dies will still mark the top as they're going through, even though it's not the cutting side. So that's all my die cutting done. I've done that lovely It's like a notepad edge, and I've done my two main leaves. That's all my die cutting. I can move my die machine out of the way entirely, and we can sit and do some assembly now. So I've got all my components, and we've got this piece that was the offcut, and I will save that and use that for another project. So we've got all of our little components here, and we can sit down and we can finish off making this card. So I could see if I can leave that on the edge of the screen so you can see. It's a bit reflective from the light, but let me pull up my seat again. Oh, squeaky wheel. And I'm going to first of all just share with you that there are these die cuts I used as a background, and I actually think I'm just going to have a really good look at this. Oh, I actually think there might be some extra stamping on that I've missed. Let's go back to the stamp set and let's grab this stamp here. It's the one with the type text. It's a grungy type text. I'm just going to grab a block and see if I can do that without knocking my camera stand. I'm just grabbing block C. It just fits. And I'm going to grab Berry Burst ink pad, and I'm going to stamp tone on tone Berry Burst ink on Berry Burst cardstock, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm actually going to stamp it first in the middle because that's going to be covered up. I've got a suspicion that this is stamp off, stamp on. So if I stamp on full strength, yes, that's really evident. So I think because this is so subtle on the example card, I think that that's a stamp off, stamp on technique. So I'm just going to grab some scratch paper. Let me just grab a piece of old grid. Oh, I've got one just next to me, so I'm just going to actually fold the grid sheet in half, just so I haven't got too much showing on screen. And I'm going to now ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp off and stamp on to the card, and that's a much paler. I think that's exactly what they've done here. So stamp off, stamp on, stamp off, stamp on, just at the top and the bottom of the card blank, because that's the only bit that's going to show, and that just gives another layer. This card's all about texture. So there's your ink pad, and as Diane is new, I'm going to explain how the ink pads work. So you open them like a compact, and then you slide them along, and you'll see when you come to close them, hold them at the side, put your fingertips in the little dip tray at the front and give it a pull, slide it all the way, and then close it with a good click. On the back of the ink pads you'll find this sticker, and the sticker has the colour names, and what you can do is peel out the sticker like so. Peel out the sticker. Oh, I had it and then I've dropped it. There we are. And you can stick them to the front of your ink pad. I'll stick this one to the back just to show you. You can stick that on your ink pad, and then you can identify the ink pad. You also get a blank one at the bottom. You'll see there's a blank one at the bottom, and if you like you can actually open like a compact, swing it all the way over and slide it. New ink pads are a little bit stiff. You can drop that blank sticker into that tray so that when you've got several ink pads open on your desktop you can see at a glance which colour's which, because some of the darker colours at a glance you can't easily identify. So again, pull. If you can't pull it, then you can always push it from the back, push it towards you, get it going, pull it, tip it and lock it with a click. You'll notice on this pad I've squished some of the ink into the lid, and that's because I wanted to use this ink, it's water-based ink, with a wet brush and use it for watercolour colouring in technique. So always close it with a nice firm click. So there you go, that's once around an ink pad. So now I've stamped that background, I can go ahead and I can start to layer up. Now you can see this card is bouncing. So I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to give that fold an extra crease, and I started from the middle and worked out to the edges. That way that your fold will always stay square with each other, so the front will always stay nice and square to the back. So now that card's not bouncing, it's sitting down nicely. I'm just going to get rid of this grid sheet because sometimes the camera doesn't like it. And I'm going to start layering this card up. So we've got a die cut piece at the top and a die cut piece at the bottom, and you set in, if you remember, I said I'm not going to pop out those bits because I knew that it would be tucked behind, so I don't need to go to the extreme of faffing and popping out those extra pieces. Now they're going to be adhered to the card base, but I'm going to leave them so you can see, I'm going to leave some of the edges so you can see that it's actually a nice leaf. It gives it texture. So I only need to adhere the bottom bit. As I'm going to adhere this piece over the top, I don't have to be precise with my glue. My fine tipped glue, I could just dot 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 the back, but I don't need to be that precise. So I'm going to go for, I could either go for tape runner like Stampin' Seal Plus, or I could go for tear and tape. And I'm also going to use some dimensionals. Now I'm rummaging through. I've got mini dimensionals. I've got a whole stack of part used dimensional sheets. So there you go. I've got a few whole ones on that one. So what I'm going to do, I'm looking, just studying that card again, is I think I'm going to just use some Stampin' Seal. And I've got Stampin' Seal Plus. I'm just going to put a couple of stripes of that across. Just run that across the way. And that way I can pop those die cut pieces on a slight angle. So I'm just sort of angling that main stem just up a little bit, and they will stick down. And that one I'm just putting on a slight angle. And that's going to stick those down, and that Stampin' Seal Plus will be hidden behind this main piece here, which I'm not sure whether that's up on dimensionals or not. I think it most probably is. So I'm going to use some dimensional foam pads to the back of that. I'm going to use one in each corner. And then I'll possibly just use a couple in the middle because it's quite a large surface area. I'm quite frugal with my dimensional foam pads. Now if you find peeling off the backings tricky, sometimes they come off really easy. And another use for your lint roller is to catch those backings. If you find that you're picking and picking, if you give them a squeeze with your thumbnail, it just helps the edges to peel off, and it's just finding a way that's easiest for you. Just go around and peel those backings off and drop them on that lint roller, and they won't end up on the dog's nose or on the end of your slipper. Oh, let's just move that out of the way because that's just picking everything up now. Yeah, I've told this story before, but when we still had Mr. Moe, he used to often tidy up the backings off the dimensionals for me with his wet nose. He was funny. So there we are. That's that lovely designer series paper. Beautiful, beautiful colour. Oh, and I think I can spot. I'm now wondering, it's such lovely paper that these flowers actually do look 3D. I'm wondering if they're fussy cut, but I don't think they have. I think it's just that they look 3D. They look so lovely in 3-dimensional. So now I've just realised what I've done wrong. Rookie error, which I can rectify. So here's another tip coming up. we've got to actually put some linen twine all the way around, and I've just stuck that layer down. But before we do that, Diane asked, Izzy, how do you get that pointy thing on the end? So I'm just going to share with you how I do that. So I simply use my snips and I eyeball the middle. So I'm just going to eyeball, I reckon that looks like the middle, and I eyeball how deep I want the V. So if I want a deep V, I cut a long way up. If I want a shallow V, I just snip a short way up. These are quite shallow V's, so I'm going to just snip up from the middle, a snip. Then I'm going to go from the point to the top of that snip, from the corner point to the top of that snip, and that's how we make that pointy end, just like that. Now I'm going to just see whether that looks a bit too long. I think it does look a bit too long compared to that sample, so I'm just going to grab my trimmer. I could snip with my scissors, but chances are it wouldn't be straight. And I'm just going to take a centimetre off, just using my trimmer. So we've got that, we don't need that spare bit, we've got that first tag, we're looking somewhere like, that second tag will go over the top, like so, but we've got that twine that we need to put round, and I forgot to do that before I stuck it on with dimensionals. Now, the temptation would be to try and pull off like this, but if you use your snips and you lay them flat, like this, just lay them flat and just snip when you can feel the dimensional foam pad. So run your snips underneath and then snip, and you can feel it's releasing. You can see it's coming up now, and I'm not going to crease that pretty paper that I've just die cut. I'm just going to, I'm taking care because I've got that die cut fancy piece underneath. There we go, I can feel the dimensional, and there should be a last one in the middle, and I've released that. So you can see I've just snipped them, we won't see them, but now I'm going to actually assemble these top pieces almost like a card topper. I'm actually going to stick them down, and then I'm going to run the twine round. So what angle have we got here? Let's look at the sample. We've got a slight angle for this one and an even more pronounced angle for this one, and we're going to just stick them down. Actually, I'm going to use our multi-purpose glue for this because I've not shown you this. So this is the multi-purpose liquid glue. We've got a spready end and we've got the pointy end. I'm going to use the pointy end, and I'm just going to put a squiggle on the back. That's all you need. You don't need very much at all. We're just going to have another look at that angle, and that to be over there, just on a slight angle, and I'm going to use another squiggle on there for another slight angle. Because we've got just a squiggle, you can see how we still have a bit of loose or a bit of dimension. Again, it's all about the layers, this card. The layers give it texture, and I always stand my multi-purpose liquid glue on its end. I've got a fancy 3D printed holder that my friend Lorna made for me, but if you haven't got one of these, you can use a fabric conditioner top, something, or a mini jar, or anything that's just nice and small, maybe an egg cup or something. Now we're going to stick. So the other question Diane asked me was, Izzy, how do I stick the linen thread or the twine onto a card? So I've got my twine on my spool, and I'm going to pull off quite a good amount. And I'm just going to run it through my fingers because it has that curl memory. I'm just going to run it through my fingers a few times. It doesn't get rid of the memory, but it just helps it to relax a bit. I'm going to get quite a longish end because I can see that we've got quite long tails on this card, and I'm going to just hold it where I want the knot and the bow to be, and we'll just let that end hang free, and then I'm going to take the rest round once and under my thumb, and round twice and under my thumb, and then I'm going to snip off another long end. Just use my snips. I can pop the linen thread to one side. So where I wanted that knot and that bow, I'm just going to pull it a little bit, but not too tight because I don't want it to curl up. I don't want it to pull my card into tension like this or over tension it. So I'm just going to tie it in a knot. I've just got glue on that, so I'm going to move it to one side, and in a bow. Oops. Just a straight knot and a bow, nothing fancy, just how you tie your shoelaces, and we'll just faff with that bow until we're happy with the size of it. And we can move that along a bit. And if we want that knot and bow, it's going to be held in position because we're going to stick that back down onto the card front. So you can leave it just like that, or if you want that bow to stay where it was, we can take a glue dot and we can, if you can see the glue dot on camera, we can peel it up and we can roll it around until we've got a glue bogey. Ew, sorry about that, but that's what we call it. So we've got a little, it's smaller than a glue dot, so it won't be seen behind that knot and bow. And we just squish that down, and that's now held firmly in place. Now we're going to put some more dimensionals onto the back of this. If I can find some full-size ones again, because I think I've just used them all up. So let's go back to our, look, my lint roller's grabbed everything. Let's just get rid of that mess. Go away, lint roller, for a minute. Really useful, but it's just grabbed everything. So I've got 4 full-size ones on my sheet, and I'm just going to position them close to where I had the original ones, but not over the top. And the reason for that is it will not add bulk then, it will just be the same amount of dimension that I had before. So I've got 4 full ones, and then I've got all this extra around the edge. So I'm just going to use my snips, and I'm just going to chop some of that, and I will pop some of those pieces into the middle, and particularly that piece that the lint roller had started to take the backing off. We'll pop that in the middle, and we'll just take the backings off. I'm just throwing them in the general direction of the lint roller now. So it doesn't pull everything. Now I can't see whether that's straight because I'm at arm's length from the camera angle. So let's just try and stick this back on straight. So there we go. And we can see those tails are quite long, but we want them, they look quite long on the sample, but we will shorten them a little bit. There, so let's bring that sample back in. Let's just clear some of this stuff away. Let's bring that sample back in, and we can see that we've cased the catalogue. So I reckon some slight differences, just the positioning of the designer series paper. They can see more of the bigger rows, but it's still really pretty. Your focal point's definitely still your sentiment, just a pretty card to say hello to somebody. We've got those beautiful die cuts behind that we've only stuck down at the bottom, so these bits are loose but they're not going anywhere. They add texture to the card, make it look really lovely. I reckon that this sample card, this top piece, this white piece that I've stamped hello on, I reckon that's perhaps a little bit skinnier on the sample than on my card, but not much. But hopefully you've learnt some tips there. You've learnt stamp off, stamp on technique, a very subtle way of just giving some extra interest to the background. You've learnt how to do that pointy end thing. You've learnt how to pop your linen thread around the card and to hold that bow nice and neatly. You have learnt some tips and tricks about die cutting, so how to just when you've got a really fine detailed die, how to pop it out using your paper piercing tool, or pokey tool we sometimes call it. The only thing I think that this card is missing is something a bit shiny, a bit blingy. So in the suite we get these flat backed self-adhesive sequins, which I've got somewhere in my box of sequins. Here we are, it's this one. And here's another tip that I tell folks, is the packets that these gems and things come in are always this horrible, reaching into the bin, this horrible cellophane. I just hate it. So I buy cheap photo albums and just snip off the sleeves. That way you just can slide in your gems really easily. So I reckon we should have some gems on this card just to bling it up a bit. And another question actually that Diane asked me on the phone was, Izzy, do you have a tool that picks up those self-adhesive gems? And yes, we do. We have the Take Your Pick tool that has a putty end. You can see there's rather a lot of putty there. You have a putty end. You twist the top and the putty comes out. And you can use that to pick up the gems. I think that one just pinged off actually. There you go. And you can stick your gems down using it. Or you've got the spatula end, which you can use to, I'm going with the white ones because they'll show up a bit better, to use as a spatula like this. I'll pop that on there. Also in the Take Your Pick tool is a piercing tool, and it also comes with, reaching up and trying not to knock the camera, a double-ended ball scoring tool. For the very, putting that on the wrong hand, for the very same price, it's a really handy tool to have. However, as a beginner just starting out and starting your tool collection, I would suggest the best thing you can buy is a good pair of scissors. You'll use your scissors for lots and lots. Fussy cutting images, you need a really good sharp pair of scissors. So I suggested to Diane that investing in a pair of snips to start with would be perhaps the better spend, even though the Take Your Pick tool has multiple uses. You can still pick up your gems with the flat blade of your snips, and this is still what I do because I've done it for years. When I'm using a tool to pop gems on, I always still use my snips, so I'll just put that third one up there. And we always try and make a bit of a triangle when we put our gems on. 3s or 5s, just use an odd number. So we've got a little bit of bling there, just finishes that card off. So yeah, snips for me as a beginner tool. You will use your snips for obviously cutting cardstock, fussy cutting, lifting gems, cutting your twine, cutting your ribbon, all sorts you can use your snips for. So hope you've enjoyed watching me case this card from the catalogue. I hope I've inspired you and given you some tips along the way, and I hope you like my card too. Thanks for watching. I'm just going to stand up and see if anybody is still watching. I've still got a couple of people watching. So flag end, yes, Shaz, we also call this the flag end or banner end. But yeah, Diane, as a beginner, said, how do you make that pointy end thingy? And that's quite a good term for me. It perfectly describes pointy end thingy, flag end, banner end. Good. Excellent. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, I'm sorry I didn't show my face, but you know, when you're having one of those no makeup days, I'm at home doing my housework days, then you get talking to a new customer and you realise actually you ought to just do a Facebook Live. You've not done one for ages. So thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on catch up or on playback on Facebook, please drop a comment below if you've got any questions. If you're watching on YouTube on catch up and you've not already liked or subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps visibility. So thanks ever so much, and I will catch up again, hopefully a bit sooner than last time. Thank you.